Hey, what's up guys? Dan Javidi here. I hope you're all well. So I'm bringing you another live video on a Sunday morning, and it is pretty early. I think it's just gone 6 a.m. and I'm doing it in the cinema room. So because everyone else is either asleep or doing their own thing in the rest of the house. And the reason why I'm bringing you a live video is because it has been a pretty hectic week for me. It's student changeover week, which are always quite busy, but also we have had the launch of the Coffee and Beer House brand, which has gone into one of my pub conversions along with 4 flats. So successfully launched it yesterday, really happy with how it went. The coffee is fantastic. We're launching beer in another 2 or 3 weeks time. So I'll let you know how that gets on. This video, I was reading an article about buy to let is dead, or is buy to let really worth it? So I thought I would just do a quick video and give you my take on why I think it is still worth it if you do it in the right way for the right market. Now, what do I mean by that? So really, for me, buy to let is a way of producing sustainable income from a property portfolio or an asset, which it also over time goes up in value. So you get the income, the residual income from the tenants after all of your costs, but you also get the bonus of that asset increasing in value, which is one of the main reasons why I think property as an investment or an asset will outperform most other sectors. But over the years, buy to let has changed, and that means a huge amount, more than it did 20, 30 years ago. When buy to let first started, there wasn't buy to let mortgages. You just bought a house either with cash or on a normal mortgage. And then people started renting these properties out. Now, landlords have had tenants for years, hundreds of years, but buy-to-let was definitely something new, and mortgages were sort of born off the back of it, specific for landlords to buy properties and rent out. And I think this subject has really been highlighted more recently because of the tenant eviction ban. There is some horror stories about families who let their property out while they went and moved abroad or traveled the world. Now they want to come back. They can't evict their tenant because there's been a tenant eviction ban. And there is also some horror stories about some tenants not paying their rent because of the coronavirus and the fact that they know a landlord can't evict them. But I just want to put my steer on that because yes, you can't evict a tenant through Section 21, but there are still things like Section 8 where a tenant that breaches the tenancy agreement or causes issues, or you have complaints from neighbours and all these various things. So if you've got a tenant who is being specifically hard work or troublesome, then maybe just to speak to a lawyer and see where you stand with other tools for a landlord to use. But look, this is a quick video because buy to let isn't dead. But you need to understand exactly where you want your buy-to-let property or portfolio to sit in terms of your lifestyle. If you're a guy who literally just wants family lets and is happy with a really low margin after your cost or after your mortgage, and you're quite content with that, and the income from a standard single let buy-to-let is pretty much just a bit of a bonus. You maybe have another job or another source of income, so you don't rely on that income from your portfolio, and your perception is that the tenants are better, they'll look after the house, you won't have any issue with paying, whatever it may be. But the issue with that is that when things go wrong, you have a large cost like a boiler or breaking down, or you go through a period of void or a tenant's not paying, the costs start to creep up and they kind of kill the profit, definitely for the year, if not even longer. So that's one of the reasons I've got 2 single lets. I don't really play in that market. I've always had a pretty much a bad experience. I've got one now, which isn't a great experience. And in the past, I've had people not paying, wrecking houses, all these other things. Then you can look at the other end of the spectrum, trying to maximize your income. Now we're staying with the residential in this video. I'm not going to really talk about commercial. But you've got things like HMOs and service accommodations, which have definitely been the buzzwords over the last few years, and more so service accommodation. Again, it's all about what you want to do, how you want to manage your portfolio versus your lifestyle. If you want to be a pretty hands-off investor, or you want something which is pretty much, you set it up and leave it for a period of time, then you don't have to get involved, and you want maximum income, then something like service accommodation and professional HMOs, in my experience, don't really do that. Don't get me wrong, there are ways you can manage it through agencies and specialists and rent-to-renters and all those various things. But we're talking about just you and the end tenant for now, to keep it simple and compare apples for apples. Now, yes, service accommodation does give a great return, headline return, but the time that you have to put into that, the advertising, the checking the guests in, checking them out, lastminute.com, last minute cancellations, all of these different things, I would argue that when you look at the net return, is it worth it for your time? I don't know. I've never directly managed a long-term serviced accommodation, and I have only got experience really over a sustained period through a rent-to-renter who took one of my properties and done it, and he's a really good operator, and I'm sure he does very, very well. But what makes me kind of fearful of it is that I do not want to be receiving calls at 10 o'clock at night when someone's been out on the beer and then they can't get into their room. And I don't want to be checking people in 2 or 3 times a week or 2 or 3 times a month, however you manage it with those types of tenants. And HMOs, professional HMOs, don't get me wrong, they have a part. We definitely do play in that market for short periods of times in between refurbs and student intake years. And it definitely plays a role, but there is always a large churn rate. I don't really care who you are, where you are, or the type of property. If you've got 5 rooms or 50 rooms, the chances of getting one ready-made group on a long-term AST for those types of properties is pretty few and far between. So that means you've got individuals on individual ASTs in there, and the type of property it is and the type of tenant that you tend to get, that they want to be flexible and they want to be able to move in and move out kind of whenever they want. So again, over a long period of time, say 12, 24 months, what's your void period like per room, and how does that compare to the headline figure that you thought you were going to get to the net result versus obviously all of the time and the cleaning and the extra maintenance that you have to do with the properties because of that churn rate. And then last but not least, and there's definitely loads more different types of tenants you can talk about, but again, really short video, I'm talking about students. Now, the reason why I don't think the buy-to-let market is dead is because there is always going to be a need from a type of tenant, regardless of really what's going on in the market, whether student tuition fees increase, whether we go into a pandemic, whatever it may be, large purpose-built stuff being built in city centres, there's always going to be a need that a private landlord who's converting houses into accommodation suitable for that market is going to be able to fulfill. And one is because you're nimble and lean, so you can shift and change with the market needs. And also the cost, you can tend to bring the costs down below, say, the higher end of the market or the most expensive player in the market. You can always be just about giving great value for money at an affordable price and still making a really good margin. The reason why I love students is because literally you sign them up, 12-month AST, they tend to stay for 2 years, sometimes even 3 years. But if you do sign them up and they only stay for 12 months, literally you get one group in there, one AST, they're already friends. You can either do bills included, bills excluded, it's entirely up to the tenant. I'm really flexible, and you kind of just forget about that property unless you have something go wrong like a standard AST. Yes, you do get some issues where students can't do basic things because this is their first time living away from home, which is absolutely fine. I'm happy to do that. That's quite an easy fix. And also you do get circumstances where you might get a bit more higher wear and tear on some of the properties because of how the property is treated in some instances, but very few and far between. In my experience, great market to deal with, absolute pleasure. I'm very, very grateful to be part of that market and to continue to bring students what I believe is high-end accommodation. So to finish really, buy-to-let isn't dead. Now, I've just given you my steer a little bit on the student market, and the buy-to-let market, whichever area you play in, even if it is just single lets, and I talked about all the negative things about when things go wrong, they eat away your margin. But look, over a period of time, you might not make a huge amount in rental income, but the asset will increase in value. Buy-to-lets are a way for a family to expand their asset from probably what is a single asset, which is their home, which actually probably has a mortgage on it, or has no mortgage and has a huge amount of cash tied up. It's a way of expanding that single asset, whichever way you look at it, onto multiple ones or just another single one. It's entirely up to you. And yes, you will have things that go against you. Things will become difficult. Things will go wrong and it will cost you money. But there will be periods of time, and over the whole course of time, it will start to pay. It just may be a bit more difficult in the beginning. But look, buy to let isn't dead. Yes, we're on a mini boom at the moment. It could go into a big boom. We just don't know. But it's going to carry on escalating whilst the stamp duty holiday is in place. And look, do I think the stamp duty holiday is going to come to an abrupt end next year? No, I think it's going to be phased out as something else is phased in, so we don't see a spike and then a massive drop down in the market. But now is a pretty good time to buy because of the stamp duty saving, but it isn't a great time to buy something that's overpriced. And I say that because you can still get some great deals. I think auction is the way forward. I'm pretty sick of buying something on the open market and being gazumped or things getting delayed because the house that they're buying is falling through, all this various things. Auction houses and auction properties, you know exactly when you're going to complete, you know exactly when the property is coming up for bid, and you kind of know how much you want to spend. And it's as simple as that. You kind of get away from all of the fluff associated with buying a property in the standard way on the open market. And they're a great place to get some great deals. But be very wary. They're also a great place where people will sell properties that potentially haven't sold for what they wanted to on the open market. And you will get some people who are retail investors or not experienced investors, or they live in a bit of a dreamland and they will literally pay on hope value more than that property is worth. Don't get suckered into those properties. The ones that you want at auction are the ones that no one else wants, the really, really bad ones, but the ones with the most potential and maybe the path of least resistance. But I hope that's been useful for you. Quick Sunday morning video. Hope you found the content rich. Don't forget to do me a huge favor and smash the like button. But that's it from me. Leave me a comment below if you want me to do a video about any other subject, but I'll catch you all on the next video.